In the year 1244, in the sun-scorched streets of Konya, where the air thickened with the sharp tang of cardamom from spice merchants' stalls and the distant wail of a reed flute pierced the dusk, a wild-eyed wanderer named Shams of Tabriz seized the reins of Jalaluddin Rumi's horse. Rumi, the golden prince of scholars, rode at the head of his entourage. Volumes of jurisprudence and theology clutched like shields by his adoring students. In that instant, before the eyes of all, Shams hurled the books into a nearby fountain, their pages blooming like drowned lotus flowers in the churning water. Rumi's world, built brick by brick on intellect's unassailable fortress, cracked open. The old self, the jurist, the teacher, the man who mistook knowledge for God, died there, gasping, as light poured through the fissure. Shams fixed his gaze on Rumi and whispered the shattering question: who was the greater lover of the divine, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who journeyed through the heavens, or Bayezid Bastami, who in a single night cried out, "How great is my majesty! Subhani ma ahzama shani?" The scholar stood speechless, his mind a whirlwind of orthodoxy unraveling. How could a lowly Sufi claim glory be to himself, eclipsing the seal of prophets? This paradox, unanswerable by scrolls or syllogisms, pierced the heart. Why burn the self to ash, if annihilation reveals a majesty greater than prophets? You have felt this crack, haven't you? That moment when your certainties dissolve like ink in rain, leaving you hollow, staring into the void. Rumi did not answer. He could not, for this was no riddle for the head, but a blade for the nafs. The ego self, that false King Jung, would later call the persona, the mask we wear to survive the world's gaze. In that shattering, Rumi glimpsed the philosopher's fire, the deliberate incineration of identity, not as Stoic endurance, but as alchemical calcinatio, where the Stoics, premeditatio malorum, meets Sufi fana, the annihilation that births baka, eternal subsistence in the beloved. The ancients knew this secret. Hidden in the shadowed halls of mystery schools, from Alexandria to Isfahan, from the Eleusinian rites to the Khalwa cells of Persian mystics, Sufism's qalb, the spiritual heart, pulses with the same rhythm as Jung's individuation, the forging of the self through shadow's forge. They burned their identities on purpose, these philosophers of the interior flame. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, urging, "Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears," echoing Rumi's later cry, "Die before you die." Al-Ghazali, in Baghdad's 11th century gloom, abandoned his professorial throne after a decade of doubt, retreating into solitude to confront the nafs, just as Jung descended into the red-hot chaos of his unconscious, mapping the anima's tavern of ruin. This knowledge was buried, my friend, not lost, but sealed in codes for the initiate alone. Ibn Arabi whispered wahdat al-wujud, the unity of being, where self and other dissolve like sugar in the ocean of the real. Attar, in his Conference of the Birds, charted the valley of annihilation, mirroring the Stoics' view from above. Marcus gazing at the cosmos to dwarf the ego's petty throne. Hafiz laughed from his tavern of ruin. The rose is not fair without the thorn. And you? You sit in the dim glow of your screen, modern seeker, haunted by the same fire. Jung called it the negredo, the blackening where the prima materia rots. The Sufis, Deeker's relentless hammer on the heart's forge. They hit it because it demands everything. Your titles, your loves, your fears, tossed into the pyre like shams, books. Tonight, we descend into this fire together, you and I, conspirators in the midnight hour. But I must warn you, this is no gentle therapy, no pop stoicism of affirmations. This is the real ordeal, the dark night, where Bayezid lost himself utterly, emerging to declare, "I was the real was I." It will strip you bare, confront your shadow in the mirror of the beloved. The Stoics burned for virtue's sake, the Sufis for union, Jung for wholeness. All the same flame. Are you prepared to let your old self burn, to step speechless into the shattering question? Once you hear this, ignorance is no longer yours to claim. The fire awaits. Yes, the fire awaits. But first, let us unearth its ancient embers, hidden in the dust of Baghdad's libraries and Persia's rose gardens. where the Sufis forged their path through the nafs long before your screen flickered to life. Picture it. 9th century Khorasan, where Bayezid Bastami, that wild dervish of Bastam, first roared into the void. In the year 825 or thereabouts, he locked himself in Khalwa solitude's iron cell, forcing the ego self, the nafs al-amara, to starve like a wolf chained from the flock. Submerge yourself in the sea of annihilation, he thundered, shattering Islamic orthodoxy with his claim of fana, the utter dissolution of the separate I. Not theory, my friend. This man dissolved so completely he emerged declaring, "There is no I, no you, only he." From Bastami's blaze, the flame leaped westward to Baghdad in the 11th century, where Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, the proof of Islam, reigned as the era's greatest scholar. Amid the Abbasid court's opulence, a crisis gripped him. 10 years of spiritual vertigo, his intellect crumbling like parchment in rain. He fled the pulpit, retreating into 10 years of ascetic wandering, dhikr pounding his qalb, the spiritual heart, like a blacksmith's hammer on molten gold. Al-Ghazali's Ihya Ulum al-Din laid bare the nafs as the tyrant within, demanding its ritual slaying for baqa, subsistence in the divine. Eastward, in 12th century Andalusia and Damascus, Muhyi al-Din ibn Arabi penned the Fusus al-Hikam, unveiling Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being, where the lover and beloved merge, self no more than a ripple on the ocean's face. These Persian mystics, Attar of Nishapur, charting the Simurgh's quest in his 12th century Conference of the Birds, Rumi, ignited by Shams of Tabriz in 13th century Konya, Hafiz, pouring wine from his 14th century Tavern of Ruin, did not invent this. They converged on the same abyss as the Stoics of antiquity. Marcus Aurelius, in his 2nd century tent amid Roman legions, practiced the view from above, dwarfing the nafs by gazing into cosmic vastness. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Epictetus, the lame slave philosopher, echoed fana, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react." From Greek hypomnemata to Sufi Mathnawi, one truth. Burn the false self to birth the real. Now, the core of it all. Fana, the annihilation. Not some poetic flourish but a surgical excision of the nafs, that serpentine ego coiled in your chest. Imagine the nafs as a fortress of mirrors, each pane reflecting your titles, wounds, desires. Corking, lover, victim, dhikr, the remembrance of the real through endless invocation, La ilaha illallah, shatters them one by one, until the qalb, that subtle heart beneath the pumping flesh, awakens. Rumi knew. The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere, they're in each other all along. Attar's parable burns brightest here. In the Conference of the Birds, 30,000 fowl embark for the Simurgh, their king. Through 7 valleys, quest, love, annihilation, they dwindle to 30, exhausted, arriving at the summit. There, in the pool's reflection, they see themselves. Simurgh, 30 birds, the Simurgh. Fana's revelation, the seeker is the sought, no separate throne. The Stoics mirrored this in their premeditatio malorum, premeditating ruin to rob fate of its sting, ego reduced to ash. Hafiz laughed. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. From fana flows baqa, subsistence, not annihilation's end but its fruit. The moth, wings charred, lives in the candle's flame. You subsist in the beloved, nafs transmuted. And here psychology bridges the gulf, confirming what these ancients bled for. Carl Jung, in his Red Book Descent of 1913 to 1930, confronted the same. The nigredo. That blackening putrefaction where the prima materia, the raw psyche rots in Khalwa's depths. No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven, unless its roots reach down to hell. He wrote in Civilization in Transition, your shadow, that nafs projected outward as enemy or devil, demands integration, not slaying, but wedding. Jung's anima, the feminine soul image, whispers like the Sufi beloved, drawing you to individuation, the baqa of the self. The animus in woman, shadow in man. These archetypes mirror Ibn Arabi's barzakh, the isthmus between worlds. Jung mapped the collective unconscious as Wahdat al-Wujud's psychic ocean, where personal nafs drowns for the greater unity. Modern labs echo it. Neuroscience reveals the default mode network, that ego's chattering throne, quiets in meditation's dicker, qalb aflame. You have felt this stirring, haven't you? That terror at the edge, shadow grinning back. The Stoics burned for virtue, Sufis for union, Jung for wholeness. All alchemists of one fire. This ancient knowledge was no accident of culture. It was the human soul's universal ordeal, encoded across millennia. The fire does not discriminate. It awaits your nafs next. It awaits your nafs next. And when the flames lick close, you glimpse the synthesis, the hidden lattice, where Sufi fire meets Stoic steel and Jungian depths. Listen. In 9th century Baghdad, Bayezid Bastami, that wild dervish, cried out in Fana's grip, "Subhani, how great is my majesty!" Not hubris, but annihilation's paradox. The nafs so dissolved, the divine speaks through the void. He became the mirror, no self left to polish. Echo this in Marcus Aurelius, emperor burning his identity in the Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Meditatio malorum, his voluntary khalwa, where he imagined exile, torture, death. Fana by decree, ego charred to reveal the cosmic logos. That wahdat al-wujud in Roman garbs. Surprise awaits in the crossweave. Rumi, pierced by Shams of Tabriz in 1244 Konya, wailed in the Masnavi, "I was on his path, yet he left me. I was his, yet he made me distant from him. He drowned me in the sea, then made me thirst." Shams, the beloved incarnate, was Rumi's shadow wedding, anima unleashed in masculine fury. Jung would call it the devouring archetype, pulling the scholar into individuation's whirlpool. Attar, centuries earlier in the Conference of the Birds, mapped it as the 30 birds, trek. Nafs pecked away in 7 valleys, till Simurgh dawns. Stoics nod here. Epictetus, slave-turned-sage, in his Enchiridion. It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Both traditions demand the same. Voluntary ruin in the tavern of ruin, Hafiz's haunt, where the rose is not fair without the thorn. Deeper still, Al-Ghazali in his Ihya Ulum al-Din bridges it all. Post-1095 breakdown. He abandoned tenure, wealth, dove into Dikar's solitude, Khalwa in Tus, emerging with Baqa's subsistence. The heart is blackened by sins until Dikar polishes it. Jung mirrors in Mysterium Conjunctionis. The conjunctio is an archetype of life itself, the secret of the philosopher's stone. Ibn Arabi's Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being from Andalusia's 1200s, floods Jung's collective unconscious, that psychic barzakh where personal shadow merges with the self. Unexpected? The Stoic memento mori is Fana's premeditation, Jung's negredo, Sufi qalb's putrefaction. 3 rivers, 1 ocean. The fire alchemizes across veils. You have felt this convergence, haven't you? Not in dusty tomes, but slamming brakes in rush-hour rage, that nafs flaring, projecting shadow onto the merging driver, your inner devil honking back. Every time you scroll feeds at midnight, chasing likes like moths to pixels, it's the ego's tavern of ruin calling. The beloved whispers through the ache. Loneliness not as curse, but Kalwa's invitation. Remember that promotion you clawed for, only to wake hollow? Fana disguised as burnout, premeditatio malorum in boardroom clothes. Stoic virtue demanding you burn the title, subsist in bare humanity. And you, sitting here in this moment, breath shallow, feel the qalb stir? That terror in vulnerability, anima's gaze in a lover's eyes, or animus, blade in your resolve. Modern labs confirm. Psilocybin trials mimic Dikar, default mode network dissolving, as in Bastami's trance, ego's throne toppled. Your addictions, doom scrolling, binging, grudges, they are the nafs, last stand, shadow unintegrated, howling against individuation. This isn't theory, it's your pulse racing now, fire at the gate. The Stoics burned for archete, Sufis for the beloved, Jung for the self. Same ordeal, you stand at its edge, will you step in? The nafs trembles, but baqa awaits beyond. Step in. The trembling nafs is your first gatekeeper. Brush it aside. This is no vague yearning. It's a technology, forged in the crucibles of Baghdad's 9th century Zawaya and Jung's Red Book visions. 4 stations await, each a blade to your illusions. Walk them as I did, through the dark night that left me hollowed, reborn. First station, Khalwa, the solitude of seclusions. Lock the door. No scrolls, no mirrors, no lovers, whispers. Just you and the qalb's raw pulse in a bare room. Sufis like Attar, in his Conference of the Birds, vanish into mountain caves for 40 days. Shams dragged Rumi into this abyss before the poetry bloomed. Psychologically, it's terror unmasked. The nafs writhes like a cornered serpent, every buried grudge, every anima's unmet longing flooding in shadows. Your mind fractures. Panic attacks mimic Stoic premeditatio malorum, foreseeing loss until identity crumbles. Alchemically, this is nigredo, the blackening putrefaction. As the Rosarium Philosophorum depicts, the king and queen drown in prima materia's swamp, ego dissolved in Solve's acid bath. Second station, Dhikr, the remembrance chant. In Khalwa's silence, invoke the beloved's name, La ilaha illallah, until breath sinks with heart. Al-Ghazali polished his blackened qalb this way post-crisis. Dhikr is the polish that cleanses the heart's mirror. Feel it inside. Waves of ecstasy crash against grief's dam, animus sharpening your will, while shadow integrates in fevered visions. The nafs howls, then quiets, like scrolling feeds at 3 a.m. But now the tavern of ruin empties, pixels fading to wahdat al-wujud's oneness. Albedo dawns here, the whitening wash. Jung's psychology echoes, active imagination as dhikr, purifying the collective unconscious. Coagula begins. Impurities precipitate as pearl-white luna. Third station, fauna, annihilation's blaze. No escape now. The ego self-incinerates. Bayezid Bastami roared in 874 CE, Subhani, how great is my majesty! Not hubris but nafs, throne toppled, self-flooding in. Psychologically, it's ego death's vertigo. Lovers, embrace dissolves boundaries. Individuation's fire, where animus unite in conjunctio's embrace. You weep, rage, laugh. Hafiz's tavern turns to holy ruin, wine the blood of the heart. This is Citrinitas, the yellowing dawn. Sulfur awakens in the Athenor, as Zosimos of Panopolis etched in his 300 CE visions. The body putrefies, spirit yellows toward gold. Stoics knew it as apatheia, not apathy but passion transmuted. Fourth station, Baka, subsistence in the beloved. Fauna's ashes cool. You emerge not empty but luminous, subsisting in divine unity. Rumi post Shams. I have died 1,000 times, yet see, I live. Inside, its serene power. Shadow befriended, Kalb a sun radiating arete. No more chasing, you are the chased. Rubedo's red stone gleams, philosopher's tincture. Of an Arabi mapped it. Baqa, as eternal witness in Wahdat al-Wujud. These are no metaphors. They're solve et coagula, engineered across millennia. Jung devoured the Sufi texts, seeing in the Rosarium's engravings the same sequence. Dissolve the prima materia, nafs. Wash in Luna's tears, dhikr. Yellow in Sol's fire, fana. Redden in Rubedo's marriage, baka. Paracelsus called it the spagyric art. Separate, purify, reunite. I lived it. Khalwa's isolation birthed visions, matching Jung's black books. Fauna's blaze mirroring Marcus Aurelius. Firewalking amid plagues. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Modern labs echo the forge. Johns Hopkins, 2006 Griffith's study on psilocybin-induced fauna-like ego dissolution, default mode network, DMN, collapsing as in Bastami's samadhi. fMRI shows prefrontal cortex quieting, serotonin 5-HT2A receptors flooding. HeartMath Institute's coherence research validates CALB. Dicker synchronizes HRV, vagus nerve toning the parasympathetic, mirroring albedo's calm. Yet science kneels here. Neurons fire, but the beloved's wine pours beyond. It's validation, not the vine. You feel the pull now, apprentice? These stations demand your blood. The nafs fights dirty, but cross them, and Baqa's subsistence claims you. The philosopher's fire isn't optional, it's your inheritance. Burn, but you resist. The nafs claws back. Apprentice, that serpent ego coiled in your gut, hissing lies of safety. You feel it now. The pull I described demands surrender, yet your body stiffens, a fortress of forgotten wars. Wilhelm Reich called it character armor. Rigid muscles, clenched jaws, shallow breaths. The physical husk of repressed rage, frozen since childhood wounds. Jung saw the same in the shadow, that underworld twin you shove into the basement, where it festers, leaking venom into dreams. Modern life? It's the grand distraction machine. Endless scrolls on dopamine reels, Netflix numbness, porn's false embrace. Hedonism as hijab, veiling the fire. You numb the Kalb's whisper with whiskey and workaholism, building empires on sand. The Stoics burned this armor in premeditatio malorum, imagining ruin to starve the fear. But you? You armor up tighter, mistaking chains for strength. Resistance births the monster. Refuse Fauna's forge, and the shadow erupts. Not as metaphor, but madness. In 1166, Attar wrote of the bird Simurgh, in Conference of the Birds. Seekers reach the mountain, see their own reflections in the lake, shatter in horror. That's you. Staring into the naf's mirror, ugly truths clawing out. Al-Ghazali confessed in his revival, I was a mountain of knowledge, but a moat of faith, until Allah toppled him into dust. Your distractions? They amplify the beast. Addiction isn't escape. It's the shadow feasting alive. Now, the descent. The dark night crashes in. No warning, no mercy. This is Nigredo, alchemy's black sun, where prima materia rots in the flask. St. John of the Cross named it Noche Oscura. O guiding night, O night more lovely than the dawn. But lovely? Lies. It feels like drowning in ink. The ego fractures. Identity shreds like papyrus in Baghdad's 1258 siege. I know. Kalwa's solitude gripped me. 40 days in a bare room, Dicker pounding like war drums. Visions came. Shams, face dissolving into mine. Hafiz's tavern crumbling to void. The Kalb convulses. Anima howling from the depths. Woman soul for the man. Man shadow for the woman. Jung etched it in Red Book. I am the crucified one between Negredo and Albedo. Terrifying. Disorienting. You claw at walls that aren't there, begging God, universe, mother for anchor. Subhanallah, you gasp, but Nafs screams. This is death. Bayezid Bastami roared it raw. I desired to know him, so I looked at myself and saw him. Then I wished to know if he knew me, so I looked at his knowledge and saw myself. Suddenly I was erased. Fauna's annihilation. No self left. The dark night strips language, lovers, gods. Most seekers bolt here. Ibn Arabi warned. 9/10 perish in this pass, clutching illusions like life rafts. You see it daily. Therapy couches crowded with half-awakened, popping pills to resurrect the false I. Stoics like Epictetus faced it. It's not things that upset us, but our judgments. But judgment dies first. 90% flee to baubles, marriages, careers, anything but the abyss. Yet listen, this night is mercy, not curse. Or shadow isn't mere filth. Jung knew it hides the gold. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Not shadow. Negredo putrefies the husk so Baccha's rose can bloom. Rumi whispered eternal. The wound is the place where the light enters you into gash. I bore that gash. Depression's blade carving open the kalb. Anxiety's storm-stripping illusions. Feel it. You scrolling in the glow of your screen? Existential dread gnawing ribs at 3 a.m.? That's no pathology. No Prozac fix. It's the soul's fist on your door, Wahdat al-Wujud calling through cracks. Your breakdowns? Mercy wounds. Modern man medicates the medicine. Apprentice. You've tasted this edge. The sleepless nights. The void's hunger. I walked it. Shadow swallowing me whole in a Tehran attic. Echoing al-Halaj's Ana al-Haq before the noose. Emerged, scarred, luminous. The dark night devours the pretender. What's left subsists. Don't turn back. The fire waits below, promising dawn. Lean in. And you lean. The fire consumes. Dawn cracks the horizon. Beyond Fana's abyss lies Baka, the subsistence. Not in your hollow nafs, but in him. The alchemist calls it rubedo, the reddening. Lead transmuted to philosopher's gold. Anima and animus wed in the kalb's furnace, birthing the self. Jung glimpsed it in his visions. The integration of the shadow leads to the conjunctio, where opposites embrace and the royal marriage consummates. No longer crucified between Negredo's rot and Albedo's bleach, you rise whole. The dark night was no end. It was the forge. I felt it, emerging from that Tehran attic, not as ghost, but as flame-clad wanderer. The world rushed back, sharper, alive with Wahdat al-Wujud's pulse. Every leaf a verse, every stranger the beloved's face. The mystic does not flee to caves forever. No Baka hurls you back to the bazaar, transformed. Before enlightenment you chopped wood, carried water. After? The same acts, but now they sing. Rumi, shattered by shams, disappearances, did not cloister in grief. He danced through Konya's streets, verses pouring like wine from the tavern of ruin. Come, come, whoever you are, he called to merchants and beggars alike. Attar echoed it in his Conference of the Birds. The seekers, stripped in the Valley of Annihilation, return as Simera. 30 birds discovering they were the phoenix all along. Stoics knew this return. Marcus Aurelius, emperor in Rome's gore, journaled from the battlefield. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. Duty deepened, not abandoned. Awakening? It is plunging deeper into the world's roar, nafs burned away, so every breath serves the whole. This is the universal truth, apprentice, etched across epochs. The treasure was never lost, it throbbed in your chest from birth. You are not a drop in the ocean, Rumi confessed. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Sufism's Fana mirrors Jung's individuation. Shadow devoured, not exiled. Nafs crucified like Christ's nafs on Golgotha. Al-Ghazali, once logic's sultan, dissolved in Khalwa's solitude, emerging to proclaim Ihya ulum al-din, the revival of religious sciences, not as dry treatise, but lived fire. Ibn Arabi unveiled Wahdat al-Wujud, unity of being, where Hafiz's cupbearer and Jung's archetypal beloved are one. Even Stoics burned identity in their inner ekpyrosis, Epictetus whispering, freedom is secured by the nafs mastering itself. Persian reed flute, Jung's Red Book, Attar's 7 valleys, all arrows to the same, no east-west divide. The alchemical opus mirrors Dicker's remembrance. Repeat the name until the nameless speaks you. Traditions converge here, in the Kalb's silent thunder. Bayezid Bastami, after his erasure, laughed at the mullahs. I saw the Lord with my Lord. No hierarchy remains. You too carry this mapless map, and you. Listener, curled in your chair, screens glow your only candle. Feel the shift? The invitation stands open. No grand ritual. Simply this. Tonight, enter Khalwa. Sit in the quiet room of your breath. Inhale the void that once terrified. Exhale the nafs clinging like smoke. Observe the watcher watching. No books. No gurus. Just you. Raw as dawn's first wound. Let dhikr rise unbidden. Subhanallah. In the heartbeat's pause. The shadow stirs? Welcome it home. This is no gentle therapy. It demands your death. Again, what lingers when the fire fades? Not answers, a question etched in eternity's reed. Who gazes back from the mirror when the mask of I dissolves? Beloved or you? Lean in. The dawn awaits your yes.